They were proud creatures. They stood 7 feet tall on their hind legs, covered in thick fur that could stop a blade. Their claws could tear through metal. Their teeth could crush bone. For 3,000 years they had ruled their corner of the galaxy. No species had ever made them feel small. No species had ever made them feel afraid. Their home world was a place of endless forests and frozen mountains. Only the strong survived there. The weak died young. This was their way, and they believed it was the only way. Elder stood at the great window of the council hall, watching the strange ship descend through the clouds. It was small and ugly, built without grace or beauty. They built their ships to look like predators. This human ship looked like a metal box with engines attached. "The humans have arrived," said his aide, a young female named. "Their ambassador requests permission to land." Made a sound of mild interest. He had read the reports about humans. They came from a planet called Earth, a world the Galactic database classified as a Category 12 death world. This classification meant nothing to him. Many species exaggerated the dangers of their home worlds to seem more impressive. "Grant them permission," said, "and bring the cubs from the Eastern to observe. They should learn how diplomacy works." The cubs arrived within the hour. 20 young, all between 8 and 12 cycles old, gathered in the observation gallery above the landing platform. They pushed against the glass, eager to see the alien visitor. Was the oldest among them, a strong young male with dark fur and amber eyes. He was grandson, though he never spoke of this. He wanted to earn respect through his own strength, not his bloodline. "What do humans look like?" asked a small female cub named. "I heard they have no fur," said another cub. "They are pink and soft like newborn pups." "I heard they cannot even breathe our air," added with a laugh. "They need machines to survive." The ship landed with a hiss of steam and settling metal. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened and the human stepped out. The cubs fell silent. The human was small, so very small. She stood perhaps 5 feet tall, shorter than even the youngest cub present. She wore a bulky white suit that covered her entire body. A round helmet sat upon her head, connected to a tank on her back by thick tubes. Through the helmet's glass, the cubs could see a pale face with dark eyes and black hair cut short. She moved slowly, carefully, like a prey animal entering unknown territory. "That is the ambassador?" asked, unable to hide his disbelief. "That tiny thing." Elder stepped forward to greet the human. He towered over her, his shadow blocking out the sun. The human had to crane her neck to look up at him. "Welcome to Prime," said, his deep voice rumbling across the platform. "I am Elder, leader of the High Council. You are the human called." "I am," the human said. Her voice came through a speaker in her helmet, flat and mechanical. "Thank you for receiving me, Elder. Earth sends its greetings and hopes for peaceful relations between our peoples." Her words were formal and polite. Too polite, thought. She spoke like someone who was afraid. Led her toward the council hall. The cubs followed from above, moving through connecting corridors to keep the human in sight. They watched her every step. "She walks like she might break," whispered. "Did you see her flinch when the elder spoke?" another cub added. "She is afraid of loud noises." Studied the human with growing contempt. Her suit made soft whirring sounds as she moved, and he realized that the suit itself was helping her walk. She was so weak that she needed a machine to move her own legs. The meeting lasted 3 hours. The cubs grew bored but forced himself to watch. He wanted to understand humans, to know their weaknesses. The human called spoke of trade and cooperation. She spoke of sharing knowledge and building friendship. She asked for one thing only: permission to establish a small human settlement on an unused moon in the system. "Why do you want this?" asked. "Humans are explorers," said. "We wish to learn about your region of space. The moon we request is not habitable by standards. We would not be taking anything of value from you." Considered this. The moon she spoke of was a worthless rock, covered in toxic plants and unstable terrain. No one would ever want to live there. "You may have it," he said. "Consider it a gift between our peoples." Bowed her head. "You are most generous, elder." After the meeting, summoned the cubs to his private chamber. He stood before them like a mountain, his ancient eyes moving across their young faces. "What did you learn today?" he asked. "Humans are weak," said immediately. "They cannot survive without machines. They are small and fragile. They are no threat to us." Several cubs nodded in agreement, but did not seem pleased by this answer. He was quiet for a long moment. "The Galactic database calls Earth a death world," he said slowly. "Do you know what this means?" "It means their planet is dangerous," said. "It means their planet has been trying to kill them since they first existed," corrected. "The gravity is heavy. The air is thick with oxygen, which is a poison to many species. The planet is covered with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and extreme temperatures. Nothing about Earth is gentle." Frowned, "But look at them. They are soft, they are slow. How could they survive such a world?" Turned to the window. Outside, ship was preparing to depart. "That," he said, "is a question I do not have an answer to. Perhaps they are simply lucky. Perhaps the reports are exaggerated, or perhaps," he paused, "perhaps we are not seeing the complete picture." Did not understand what the elder meant. He watched the human ship rise into the sky and disappear among the clouds. Inside, sat alone in her small cabin. She removed her helmet and breathed deeply, rubbing the sore spots where the suit pressed against her skin. She looked at her reflection in a small mirror. Her face was pale and tired. Dark circles hung under her eyes. "First contact successful," she said to herself. "They think I am weak. They think humans are no threat." She allowed herself a small smile. "Good, let them think that." She pulled up a holographic display and began writing her report to Earth. Her fingers moved quickly across the light keys. "They are a warrior species," she wrote, "proud, strong, and completely confident in their superiority. They have never faced a true challenge to their dominance. They have never known fear. This makes them predictable. This makes them safe. As long as they underestimate us, we can work alongside them without conflict." She paused, then added a final line. "I will ensure they continue to underestimate us. Some truths are better left hidden." Back on Prime, the cubs returned to there, already forgetting about the strange, small alien. They had more important things to think about: training, hunting, proving their strength to each other. But could not shake a strange feeling. When he had looked into the human's eyes through her helmet glass, just for a moment, he had seen something that did not match her weak body and timid movements. He had seen patience. He had seen calculation. He had seen the eyes of a predator pretending to be prey. He told himself he was imagining things. Humans were soft creatures. Everyone knew this. There was nothing to fear from them. He was wrong, but he would not learn this truth for another 3 cycles, and when he did, the lesson would change him forever. 3 cycles passed. The human settlement on the distant moon grew slowly, quietly. Most forgot it existed. They had more important concerns: territory disputes, hunting competitions, the endless work of maintaining their empire. Had grown taller and stronger. He was now 14 cycles old, nearly an adult by standards. His fur had darkened to almost black, and his claws had grown long and sharp. He trained every day with weapons and combat techniques. He wanted to become a warrior, to bring honor to his family name. On the day everything changed, was aboard a transport ship with 41 other cubs. They were traveling to the training grounds on 3, a rite of passage for young approaching adulthood. The journey would take 2 days. Sat near a window, watching the stars drift past. Around him, younger cubs talked and laughed and wrestled playfully. He remembered being that young, that innocent. He felt old now, though he was still a child by most standards. The ship's captain, a veteran warrior named, walked through the passenger cabin. He was checking on the cubs, making sure everyone was comfortable. His eyes met, and he nodded with respect. He knew whose grandfather was. "We will arrive by tomorrow evening," announced to the group. "Rest well tonight. Your training will be difficult." The cubs cheered. They were excited. None of them knew that they would never reach 3. The attack came without warning. A massive jolt shook the ship. Alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed. The cubs were thrown from their seats, tumbling across the cabin in a chaos of fur and claws. Pirates shouted, "Everyone stay down." Through the window saw another ship, dark and angular, firing weapons at their transport. Bright beams of energy cut through space, slamming into their hull. The transport shuddered with each impact. Ran to the bridge. The cubs huddled together, terrified. Some of the younger ones were crying. Grabbed a support beam and held on as the ship lurched violently. Another explosion. The lights went out. Emergency power flickered on, bathing everything in dim red. "We are going down," his voice came over the intercom. "Brace for impact. We are making emergency landing on 7. 7 felt his blood run cold. He had heard stories about that moon. It was a nightmare world, covered in poisonous jungles and filled with creatures that even adults feared. No one lived there. No one could live there. The transport hit the atmosphere at a steep angle. Fire consumed the view outside the windows. The hull screamed as it tore apart. Cubs screamed louder. Then impact. Remembered flying through the air. He remembered hitting something hard. Then darkness. When he woke, he was lying in mud. Rain was falling on his face. The air smelled wrong, thick and chemical, burning his nose and throat. He coughed and pushed himself up. The transport was destroyed. Pieces of it were scattered across a clearing in a dense jungle. Trees surrounded them on all sides, tall and twisted, covered in glowing fungi and dripping vines. Strange sounds came from the darkness, clicks and howls and things he could not identify. Other cubs were waking up around him. Some were injured. Some were not moving at all. Forced himself to stand. His body ached everywhere, but nothing seemed broken. He began checking on the others, helping them to their feet, trying to find anyone in charge. He found Captain near the front of the wreckage. The veteran warrior was still alive, but barely. A metal beam had pierced his chest. Blood pooled beneath him. Whispered, "You must. Lead them, keep them alive, help will come." "How long?" asked, fighting back panic. The distress signal went out, "But there is a storm blocking the system. 6 days, maybe more," coughed Blood. "You have supplies for 2 days, maybe 3 if you ration carefully." 6 days, 2 days of supplies, on a moon that could kill them 100 different ways. "I do not know how," admitted. "I am just a cub." "You are," said. His voice was growing weaker. "That means you survive no matter what, you survive." He died with those words on his lips. Stood over the body for a long moment. Then he turned to face the other cubs. 41 young faces looked at him, filled with fear and confusion. Many were injured. Some were in shock. They were all waiting for someone to tell them what to do. He was the oldest. He was the strongest. He had no choice. "Listen to me," he said, making his voice as steady as he could. "We are going to survive. We are going to stay together, follow orders, and wait for rescue. Does everyone understand?" Slow nods, frightened eyes. "Good. First, we gather all supplies. Food, water, medical kits, anything useful. Then we find shelter. We do not leave this clearing unless absolutely necessary. The jungle is dangerous." They worked through the night. By morning, they had salvaged enough supplies for 3 days if they were careful. They had found a section of the hull that could serve as shelter. They had counted their numbers, 42 cubs alive, 7 with serious injuries. And then the waiting began. The first day was hard. The second day was harder. The atmosphere of 7 was toxic to them. Their breathing filters could clean it, but the filters were running low. The temperature swung wildly, burning hot during the day, freezing cold at night. Creatures prowled at the edge of the clearing, watching them with hungry eyes. On the third day, their food ran out. On the fourth day, 3 cubs collapsed from atmospheric poisoning. Their filters had failed. Did everything he could. He rationed the remaining filters. He organized hunting parties, though they found nothing they could safely eat. He kept watch at night, fighting his own exhaustion. He was failing. He knew it. They were all going to die on this moon, and there was nothing he could do. Then, on the evening of the 4th day, a transmission came through their damaged communications system. "Transport, this is Ambassador from the human enclave. I have received your distress signal. I am coming to assist. Please respond." The human, the weak, soft, fragile human, almost laughed at the absurdity. What could she possibly do? He grabbed the communicator. "This is acting leader of the survivors. We have 42 cubs, many injured. We are low on supplies and medical equipment. Our position is—" "I have your position," interrupted. "The ion storm is blocking your rescue ships, but my shuttle can navigate it. I will be there in 6 hours. Ambassador, with respect, you cannot help us. This moon is classified as extremely hazardous. You will die here." There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I understand your concern, but I am coming anyway. Keep your people together, keep them calm. I will find you." The transmission ended. Stared at the communicator. Around him, the other cubs had heard everything. Some looked hopeful, most looked doubtful. "The human is coming?" asked. She was one of the youngest survivors, only 8 cycles old. Her leg was broken, splinted with metal from the wreckage. But she is so small. How can she help? Did not have an answer. He looked up at the toxic sky, watching the storm clouds swirl in unnatural patterns. "We will find out," he said quietly. "We will find out." Somewhere above them, a small shuttle was descending through the storm. Inside, checked her equipment one final time. Weapons, medical supplies, emergency rations, breathing apparatus. She looked at herself in the cockpit mirror. The same pale face, the same dark eyes, but something was different now. There was a hardness in her expression that had not been there before. She had spent 3 cycles living on that barren moon, pretending to be weak, pretending to be harmless. She had played the role of the fragile human so well that even she had almost forgotten the truth. But now there were children dying. Children, yes, but still children, and had not survived 32 years on Earth by being fragile. The shuttle shook as it entered the storm. Lightning cracked across the sky. Alarms warned of dangerous wind speeds and hull stress. Smiled. "Just like home," she said, and pushed the throttle forward. Night fell on 7 like a heavy blanket. The temperature dropped so fast that frost formed on the metal wreckage within minutes. The cubs huddled together inside their makeshift shelter, sharing body heat, trying to stay alive. Stood at the entrance, watching the jungle. The darkness was absolute. No moons hung in the sky of this world. No stars were visible through the thick clouds. Only the faint glow of poisonous fungi provided any light, and that light was wrong, green, and pulsing, like the heartbeat of something evil. Strange sounds filled the night, clicks and growls and wet, slithering noises. The creatures of 7 were waking up. "How much longer?" asked from inside the shelter. Her voice was weak. The atmospheric poisoning was getting worse. The human said 6 hours, replied. "That was 4 hours ago. She should be here soon." If she survived the storm, if her ship did not crash, if she was not already dead. He did not say these thoughts out loud. A low rumble echoed through the jungle. Something large was moving out there just beyond the tree line. His ears flattened against his skull, his claws extended instinctively. "Everyone stay quiet," he whispered. "Do not make a sound." The rumbling grew closer, trees shook, then stopped. Silence. held his breath. A crash from above. Something broke through the canopy, trailing fire and smoke. The cub screamed, threw himself backward, expecting death. But it was not a monster. It was a shuttle. A human shuttle, small and battered, spiraling down through the trees. It hit the ground hard, tearing a path through the vegetation, finally stopping just 20 meters from their camp. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the shuttle door opened, and the human stepped out. Looked different than remembered. She wore the same white atmospheric suit, the same round helmet, but her movements were not slow anymore. She walked with purpose, scanning the area, her hand resting on a weapon at her hip. "Survivors of the transport," she called out, "I am here. Where are your injured?" Stepped forward. "Here. We have 7 with serious injuries, many more with minor ones. Our atmospheric filters are failing." Nodded and moved toward him. Up close, she was still small, laughably small compared to even the youngest cub, but something about her presence had changed. There was no fear in her posture now. She entered the shelter and began examining the injured. Her movements were quick and efficient. She pulled supplies from her pack, strange human medicines, replacement filters, emergency rations. "This one has internal bleeding," she said, pointing to a young male cub. "I can stabilize him, but he needs proper surgery within 48 hours. This one has a broken spine. Do not move her. These 3 are suffering from atmospheric poisoning. New filters will help, but they need clean air soon." She worked without stopping, treating wounds, replacing filters, distributing food. The cubs watched her with wide eyes. They had expected a weak, helpless creature. This was something else entirely. "The rescue ships said, when will they arrive?" "The storm will clear in 2 days, replied without looking up. "They will reach you within hours after that." 2 days? Can we survive that long?" Finished bandaging a cub's arm and finally looked at him. Through her helmet glass, her eyes were calm and steady. "Yes," she said, "you will survive. I will make sure of it." The night grew darker. The cubs ate the rations had brought, strange food that tasted of nothing but filled their stomachs. They drank filtered water and breathed cleaner air through their new filters. For the first time in days, some of them slept. Could not sleep. He sat near the entrance watching the jungle. "Why did you come?" he asked. "You could have died. You probably should have died. That storm destroyed ships much larger than yours." Was quiet for a moment. "Because you needed help, because no one else could come, because I was able to." "That is not a real answer." She turned to look at him. Her face was hidden by the helmet, but he could feel her gaze. "When I was young," she said, "my village was destroyed by a typhoon. A great storm like the one I flew through tonight. Many people died. I survived only because strangers came to help, people who risked their own lives to save mine. I made a promise then. Whenever someone needs help, whenever I am able to give it, I will. No matter the danger, no matter the cost." Did not know what to say. This was not how he had been raised. Help their pack, their family, their clan. They did not risk their lives for strangers. But here was this human, this soft, small creature, who had flown through a deadly storm to save children she had never met. "You are strange," he said finally. Laughed softly. "All humans are strange. You will learn this." A howl split the night, then another, then a dozen more, rising from the jungle in a terrible chorus. Stood immediately. Her hand went to her weapon, a metal device that did not recognize. "What was that?" whispered from inside the shelter. The cubs were waking, fear spreading among them. Thornbacks said. His blood ran cold. He had heard stories about these creatures. They were the apex predators of 7 massive beasts with thick armored hides and jaws that could crush bone. A single thornback could kill a trained warrior. Even teams of hunters sometimes fell to them. And from the sound of those howls, there was a pack of them. At least 6, maybe more. "Stay inside," said. Her voice was calm. "Keep the cubs together. Do not come out for any reason." "What are you going to do?" asked. She pulled the weapon from her hip. It was a gun, he realized, but larger and more complex than any weapon he had seen. "I am going to have a conversation with them," she said. Before could respond, she walked into the darkness. The cubs gathered at the shelter entrance, watching. They could see nothing, only blackness dotted with the faint glow of fungi, but they could hear. First silence, long terrible silence. Then a growl, deep and rumbling like thunder underground. Then gunfire, loud cracks that echoed through the jungle, flashing light in the darkness. Once, twice, 6 times, 10 times. A scream, something inhuman, filled with rage and pain. More gunfire, more screams, sounds of impact, flesh hitting earth, claws tearing soil. Then silence again. The cubs held their breath, gripped the entrance frame so hard that the metal bent under his claws. Minutes passed, nothing moved. Then footsteps, slow and steady, coming from the darkness. Emerged from the jungle. Her white suit was covered in dark fluid, the blood of the thornbacks, realized. She carried her weapon in one hand and something else in the other. A thornback head. She threw it at the ground near the shelter. "There were 6 of them," she said. Her voice was calm, as if she had just returned from a simple walk. "There will not be more tonight. Their kind learns from loss." She sat down near the entrance, checked her weapon, and began cleaning the blood from her suit. The cub stared at her in stunned silence. Looked at the head. It was enormous, bigger than his entire torso. The creature's jaws hung open, revealing rows of teeth each as long as his fingers. This beast could have killed him with a single bite. And the human had killed 6 of them, alone, in the dark, in 20 minutes. "How?" he whispered. Did not answer. She finished cleaning her suit, reloaded her weapon, and settled into a position facing the jungle. "Sleep," she said. "I will keep watch. Nothing else will reach you tonight." The cubs retreated into the shelter. They did not sleep well, but they slept. Even eventually closed his eyes, exhaustion overpowering his fear. But before he fell asleep, he looked at the small human one more time. She sat perfectly still, her eyes scanning the darkness, her weapon ready. He remembered what his grandfather had said 3 cycles ago. Perhaps we are not seeing the complete picture. Now he understood. The breathing mask, the slow movements, the soft voice, the careful politeness. It was all a mask, a different kind of mask than the one that covered her face. And for the first time in his life, felt something he had never felt before. He felt small. The morning brought no relief. Light filtered through the toxic clouds, revealing the full horror of 7. The jungle pressed in on all sides, twisted trees with bark that oozed poison, plants with leaves sharp enough to cut flesh, insects that swarmed in clouds of buzzing hunger. The thornback bodies lay where had left them. In daylight, they were even more terrifying. Massive creatures, each the size of a ground transport vehicle, covered in thick armor plates and spines. The cubs stared at them with a mixture of fear and awe. 6 of them, 1 human. The math did not make sense. Spent the morning checking supplies and treating the injured. Her movements were slower now, noticed. She paused sometimes to adjust her breathing mask, and her hands trembled slightly when she thought no one was watching. "Are you hurt?" he asked her. "My atmospheric processor is damaged," she admitted. "From the crash, it is not filtering properly. The air here is unpleasant." Remembered what the Galactic database said about humans. They came from an oxygen-rich world, a world with different atmospheric composition than 7. The toxic air that merely irritated lungs could kill a human in minutes without protection. "Can it be repaired?" "I am working on it. Do not worry about me. Focus on your people." But did worry. He watched her throughout the day, noticing how she gave her filtered air to the sickest cubs when her processor temporarily worked. Noticing how she breathed more and more shallowly. Noticing the growing pallor of her face through the helmet glass. She was killing herself to save them, slowly, quietly, without complaint. The second day was worse. The temperature climbed to dangerous levels. The cubs huddled in the shade of the wreckage, panting, desperate for water, distributed the last of the filtered water, keeping none for herself. "You need to drink," insisted. "Your cubs need it more. I can survive longer without water than they can." She smiled slightly. Human bodies are very good at surviving. By evening, 3 more cubs had collapsed from heat exhaustion. Treated them as best she could, but her supplies were running low. Her atmospheric processor was failing completely now. Could hear it sputtering, struggling to filter enough air for her to breathe. Then came the earthquake. It started as a low vibration, barely noticeable. Then the ground began to shake, trees swayed, the wreckage groaned, cubs screamed and grabbed onto each other. "What is happening?" cried. Stood absolutely still, her head tilted as if listening to something no one else could hear. Her face went pale. "Everyone move," she said. "Move now, away from the spot, run." The cubs did not need to be told twice. They scrambled away from the camp, supporting their injured, fleeing toward the far side of the clearing. Grabbed and carried her, her broken leg bouncing painfully. They had barely reached the tree line when the ground exploded. Something erupted from below, something enormous and impossible, a creature of nightmare rising from the depths of the moon itself. It was 100 meters long, covered in segments of black chitin armor. Countless legs churned the earth. A head crowned with mandibles that could crush boulders swung toward them. A burrower queen had heard legends about these creatures, ancient stories told to frighten cubs. They were supposed to be extinct, killed off by the ancestors who had tried to colonize this moon centuries ago. But here one was, alive, hungry, and between them and any hope of escape. The creature screamed, a sound so loud that its ears rang. The cubs fell to the ground, paralyzed with terror. Even could not move. His body simply refused to obey him. Only remained standing. She walked toward the burrower queen. Her steps were calm, measured. She pulled her weapon and checked its charge. Then she stopped and looked up at the monster towering above her. The size difference was absurd. She was an insect next to this thing, less than an insect, a speck of dust. "Cubs of," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite her failing processor. "Do not look away. You asked me once how humans survive on a death world. I am about to show you." She reached up and removed her helmet. The cubs gasped. Even through their terror, they understood what this meant. Without her helmet, the toxic atmosphere would flood her lungs. She would die, quickly, painfully, inevitably. But she did not die. She breathed in a deep, full breath of the poisonous air of 7. Her face twisted in pain. Tears streamed from her eyes. Her skin flushed red. But she did not fall. She did not collapse. She did not stop. "This air burns," she said, her voice rough and strained. "Every breath feels like swallowing fire. My lungs are screaming. My body is telling me to stop, to run, to hide." She laughed, a painful, ragged sound. "But that is the thing about humans. We do not stop. We do not run. We do not hide, not when there are people to protect." She raised her weapon and charged. What followed was not a battle. It was something beyond anything had ever witnessed or imagined. The burrower queen struck at with its massive mandibles. She dodged, rolled, kept moving. She was so small, so fast, the creature could not track her properly. She fired her weapon again and again, targeting the joints between armor plates, the soft spots near the eyes, the vulnerable sections of the legs. The creature screamed in rage and pain. Its legs churned, trying to catch her. Its tail swept across the clearing, demolishing trees. It sprayed acid from glands in its head, melting everything it touched. Took hits, saw her stumble when a leg caught her side. He saw her go flying when the tail grazed her. He saw acid splash across her suit, eating through the fabric. But she did not stop. She kept fighting, kept moving, kept shooting for 10 minutes, then 20, then 30, then 40. The cubs watched in absolute silence. They did not move. They did not breathe. They simply watched as this small, soft creature fought a monster from legend. By the end was bleeding from a dozen wounds. Her suit was in tatters. Her skin was red and blistered from the toxic air. She could barely stand. But the burrower queen was dead. Stood on top of its massive head, her weapon hanging at her side, her chest heaving with each painful breath. She looked down at the cubs, these young who had called her weak, who had laughed at her fragile body and her need for machines. "Help is coming tomorrow," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper now. "Let us get you somewhere warm." Then she climbed down from the corpse and walked toward them. Her steps were unsteady. Blood dripped from her wounds. Her breathing was a terrible, rattling sound. But she was smiling. "How?" asked. He did not recognize his own voice. "How are you still alive?" Knelt beside, checking the young cub's bandages as if nothing unusual had happened. "Humans are from a death world," she said simply. "Our planet has been trying to kill us for millions of years. We evolved to endure, to adapt, to survive." She coughed, spitting blood onto the ground. "Your atmosphere hurts, but pain is not death. Pain is just the body's way of telling you that you are still alive." She stood again, swaying slightly. "Now come. We need to find better shelter. I do not think I can fight anything else tonight." The cubs followed her without question. They would have followed her anywhere. They no longer saw a weak, soft creature. They saw something else entirely. Something that had removed its mask and shown them its true face. And that face was not the face of prey. It was the face of the most terrifying predator they had ever encountered. Not because of strength, not because of claws or teeth or size, but because of something far more fundamental. Absolute, unbreakable, impossible determination. The will to fight, the will to endure, the will to survive. No matter the cost, no matter the pain, no matter what. Walked beside, ready to catch her if she fell. She did not fall. She kept walking, one step at a time, leading them toward shelter. "You are going to die," he said quietly. "The atmospheric poisoning, your wounds, you cannot survive this." Looked at him with eyes that were calm despite everything. "Perhaps," she said, "but you will survive, all of you. That is what matters." She did not say anything else. She did not need to. Finally understood what fear truly meant. The rescue ships arrived at dawn. Had never been so happy to see anything in his life. 3 massive military vessels descended through the clearing clouds, their engines roaring, their lights cutting through the fatting darkness. Soldiers poured out before the ships even touched ground, spreading across the jungle, securing the area. Elder was on the first ship. He rushed toward the cubs, his ancient face twisted with worry. His younger cousins were among the survivors. He gathered them in his massive arms, holding them close, his body shaking with relief. Then he saw the burrower queen. The creature's corpse still lay where it had fallen, a mountain of black chitin and cooling flesh. The soldiers stared at it with disbelief. Some of them stepped back, hands going to their weapons as if the thing might rise again. "That is impossible," one soldier whispered. "Burrower queens have been extinct for centuries, and even when they lived, it took armies to kill them." "Not an army," said. He stepped forward to meet his grandfather. "One human, the ambassador, she killed it alone." Looked at his grandson. Then he looked at the corpse. Then he looked around the clearing, at the piles of dead thornbacks, at the battered cubs, at the destruction everywhere. "Where is she?" he asked. "Here." His voice came from behind them. She emerged from the makeshift shelter, walking slowly, one hand pressed against her side. Her suit was destroyed, nothing but rags hanging from her thin frame. Her skin was covered in burns and cuts and purple bruises. Her face was swollen. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. But she was walking, she was standing, she was alive. The soldiers stared at her, as if they were seeing a ghost. "Ambassador," said. His voice was strange, uncertain in a way had never heard before. You did this, all of this." "I did what was necessary," swayed on her feet. "The cubs are alive, all 42 of them. That is what matters." She took one more step, then her legs gave out. Caught her before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, less than even the youngest cub. Her body was burning hot with fever. Her breathing was a terrible, wet sound. "Medical team," roared. "Now, get the human to the medical bay immediately." The next hours were a blur. The cubs were loaded onto the rescue ships. The injured were treated. The dead captain and 2 cubs who had not survived the crash were collected with honor and was rushed to the most advanced medical facility on the flagship, where doctors fought to save her life. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of machines breathing for her when her lungs failed. 3 weeks of blood transfusions and tissue repairs and experimental treatments. 3 weeks of fighting infections that should have killed her 10 times over. But she survived. Of course she survived. She was human. That is what humans did. When she finally woke, Elder was waiting by her bedside. He had been there every day, watching over her, thinking. "You should be dead," he said quietly. "Our doctors tell me that the atmospheric poisoning alone should have killed you within minutes. The blood loss should have killed you. The infections should have killed you. The burrower queen should have crushed you like an insect." Smiled weakly. "Your doctors underestimate humans." Clearly leaned forward. "I need to understand something. When your mask came off, when you breathed our atmosphere, you did not die. You should have died. Why did you not die?" Was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "The masks we wear are not because we cannot breathe your air. Your air will not kill us quickly. It takes time, hours, sometimes days, to cause permanent damage. We wear the masks because breathing your air hurts. It burns. It is unpleasant." She paused. "We wear the masks to be polite. We did not want to frighten you." Stared at her. "Frighten us?" "Yes," looked up at him, meeting his eyes without fear. "Humans learned long ago that other species find us disturbing. We can survive things that should kill us. We can endure pain that would incapacitate others. We heal from injuries that would be fatal to most species. We keep fighting when all logic says we should stop." She shrugged slightly. "This makes others uncomfortable, so we hide it. We pretend to be weaker than we are. We wear masks, real ones and figurative ones, to seem less threatening. But when the cubs needed you, you removed the mask." "Yes, because there was no other choice, because children were dying and I could save them." Her voice hardened slightly. "I would remove any mask, break any pretense for that." Sat back in his chair. He was quiet for a long time. "The database calls your world a death world," he said finally. "I did not truly understand what that meant. I thought it meant your world was dangerous. I thought it meant you were survivors of a harsh environment." "We are." "No, it is more than that." He looked at her with new eyes. "It means your world has been trying to kill you since your species first existed. Predators, diseases, disasters, extreme temperatures, poison, radiation, everything. And yet humans are still here, still growing, still spreading across the stars." He shook his head slowly. "A death world does not produce survivors. It produces something else entirely. Something that cannot be killed because it refuses to die." Smiled again. "Now you understand." "Now I am afraid." "You should not be afraid of us, Elder. We mean you no harm. We came here seeking friendship and trade, nothing more." "That is not why I am afraid." Stood. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "I am afraid because I realize now how wrong we were. We thought we were the greatest predators in this region of space. We thought nothing could challenge us." He turned back to face her. "But we were wrong. You are not prey, Ambassador. You never were. You are predators who choose to wear the face of prey because it makes others comfortable." Did not deny it. "What happens now?" she asked. Now we build a real alliance. Not the kind we thought we were building, a powerful species tolerating a weaker one, a true partnership between equals. He walked back to her bedside. The cubs you saved, they will tell their story. They will tell everyone what you did, what you are. They will understand as I now understand. He extended his hand, a human gesture he had learned just for this moment. Thank you, Ambassador, for saving our children, for showing us the truth, for removing your mask. Reached up and took his hand. Her grip was weak from her injuries, but it was there. Thank you for listening, she said. 10 years later stood before a new generation of cubs. He was a respected warrior now, a leader of his own pack. His dark fur was streaked with, at the temples, signs of age and wisdom. And beside him stood his old friend, had remained on Prime, serving as the permanent human ambassador. She was older too. Human years showed on her face in ways that found strange but not unpleasant. The cubs looked up at them with wide, curious eyes. They had heard the stories. Everyone had heard the stories. But there was always one question they asked. Why should we respect humans? A bold young male asked. They are small, they are soft, they do not have claws or fangs. What is there to fear? Smiled, he looked at, she nodded. I asked that same question once, said, when I was young and foolish and did not understand the galaxy. He walked among the cubs, letting them see the scars on his body, scars from battles, from training, from a life of war. Then I watched this human, this small, soft creature, walk into darkness and slaughter 6 apex predators. I watched her remove her breathing mask and fight a monster from legend in air that was killing her with every breath. I watched her nearly die to save cubs she had never met. He stopped before the young male who had asked the question. We do not respect humans because they are strong. We respect them because they cannot be stopped. We respect them because pain is not an obstacle to them. It is just information. We respect them because they will die for strangers if they believe it is right. He leaned close. We respect them because we finally learned what fear truly means. What does it mean? The cub whispered. It means realizing that some things cannot be killed, not because they are immortal, but because they refuse to stop, because they will keep fighting, keep enduring, keep coming back, long after any sane creature would have accepted defeat. He straightened. Humans are that thing, and that is why we stand beside them as allies, because if we ever had to stand against them. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. The cubs understood. Later, as the sun set over Prime and walked together through the capital city, they passed statues and monuments, and one new one that had been built just 5 years ago. It was a statue of a small human woman, standing atop a fallen burrower queen, her face raised to the sky. The inscription at the base was simple. She removed her mask for us. Paused before it, her expression unreadable. I still do not understand why you built this, she said. Because we needed to remember, replied, not just what you did, but what it taught us. He looked up at the statue. We spent 3,000 years believing we were the strongest, the fiercest, the most unstoppable force in the galaxy. Then one small human showed us that true strength has nothing to do with size or claws or fangs. Then what is it? Smiled, an expression of deep respect and affection. It is the refusal to give up, the refusal to stop, the refusal to die even when the universe itself demands it. He put his hand on her shoulder. It is being human. Smiled back. She looked up at her own stone face, frozen in that moment of defiance 10 years ago. I was just doing what any human would do, she said quietly. Yes, agreed. That is exactly the point. They stood together in silence as the stars came out. 2 species, once strangers, now bound by something stronger than treaties or trade. Bound by the memory of a night when one small creature removed her mask and changed everything. Forever,